Hi, I'm Lisa Jones. My husband and I have been attending Riverbend for almost 7 years now. I am the mom of two wonderful boys, and I've been serving with Night to Shine since 2018, which has been great, but the biggest reason why I am passionate about special needs ministry is my oldest son, who has an autism and ADHD diagnosis. And I just want him to be able to enjoy coming to church, to develop meaningful friendships, and ultimately to grow in God's love. With the help of Sam and some other people, we kind of put together a 15-minute training video. And we've broken it down into two simple parts, the why and the how. So why? Why should we be intentional and proactive with meeting the needs of children with special needs in Foundation, whether they're currently in your class or not? The biggest reason why is, first, God calls us to it. 1 Corinthians 12:21-26 says, "The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you, and the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable," which is God's perspective. "And the parts that we think, again, our perspective, are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable, we treat with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part which rejoices with it." Second, we do it already one day a year with Night to Shine. And there's a growing desire from leadership at Riverbend, from others like myself in the church, and even from those involved in Night to Shine, to see the effort we put in for one night a year spill over into the church the rest of the year. And the reality is, children's ministry tends to be on the front lines of special needs ministry. And Riverbend wants to, out of an abundance of love for reaching the least, the last, and the lonely, to help you, our volunteers, to feel equipped and encouraged to love all the kiddos in Foundation and their unique needs. And lastly, there is a specific need for it. Recently, there was a large research study done. It was peer-reviewed and published in the Journal of Science and Religion that looked at almost 10 years of recent data regarding individuals with disability and church attendance. Sadly, individuals with special needs that affect behavior, social skills, and learning and cognitive skills like autism, ADHD, Down syndrome were 2 times less likely to be at church than those without any disabilities. Other research indicates that that statistic is due to, 1, the congregation's attitudes, the lack of Christ-centered love, the lack of understanding and misinformation, and 2, lack of training and programming. So why do this? Because God calls us to, because we already do it, and there's a need for it. So we talked about the why, and now I want to talk about how we can meet these needs. We can clear the ramp. There once was a school of 100 students. Only one of the 100 students was in a wheelchair. One day there was a big storm. While the roads were plowed and school wasn't canceled, the janitor was late getting started shoveling out the entrance. The 100 students were waiting out front of the school by the time the janitor arrived. He began shoveling the stairs to the school when the student in the wheelchair asked, "Why don't you shovel the wheelchair ramp first?" To which the janitor replied, "Well, all these kids are waiting here, so first let me shovel the stairs for the 99 students so that they can get into the school. Then I'll shovel the ramp for you." To which the student in the wheelchair replied, "If you shovel the stairs first, I will be late for class because I cannot go up the stairs. But if you shovel the ramp first, we can all get to class on time because everyone can use the ramp." So the first step to clearing the ramp is changing our perspective. Referencing back to 1 Corinthians 12, the difference between the world's perspective and God's perspective is changing our perspectives of trying to clear stairs first and then the ramp to creating and clearing ramps so that everyone can use. Ultimately, we want to clear the ramp to make Foundations and church accessible to everyone. The second step to clearing the ramp is knowing your tools. For parents of children with special needs, there is now an option to fill out a child profile. They can share the child's diagnoses, what the child likes, where the child may have challenges, and accommodations that can be made. And this is something that will be available to teachers, both a full profile that the parents filled out with lots of detail, as well as a short one-page profile that you can reference back each time you are in the class, working in the class, so that you know how to best love this child. And this sheet is not just for children with diagnoses, it's for any child that the parents think would benefit, diagnosed or not, whether they've been through trauma or not, whether they're adoptive or just other challenges that a child may face in the classroom. Another tool is scripts. And I know talking to others, sometimes the biggest apprehension people have with interacting with individuals with special needs or their families is just knowing what to say. And so first and foremost, we're all people, and it's just talking to people like you would talk to anyone else. However, the purpose of this script is to give some ideas on how to talk through more specific different situations that you may encounter, such as how to address an accommodation that the whole class needs to make for their peer, like a child with a sound sensitivity, or how to talk through transitions, which I highly recommend that everyone learn how to use transitional language and to proactively work on that, because it's something that's really a big deal for any child with special needs. It's simple, but it also works for everyone. Everyone needs transitional language, and it makes a huge difference. There's also scripts on how to talk to a parent or caregiver of a child, like when there's a recurrent issue in class and you want to know how to better love the child. And a lot of that language I took from how Sam has interacted with me, with Asher, and just how I felt very loved, and how I felt like my child wasn't a burden but a blessing. And so I included that in the script as well. Another tool that's available is in every classroom. There are fidgets and sensory items. They are up in a bin and are great to offer a child when they request it, or if they're just having challenges in the class, whether it's sitting still at a time that needs quieter activity, or they just need something to keep their hands occupied in order to participate in class. So these are available in every classroom. Another tool available for every teacher is a proprioceptive activity list. Proprioceptive activities are activities that provide feedback for kids about where their body is in space. It's organizing and it's calming, even if it doesn't look like it. Some proprioceptive activities are actually crashing into things, like this giant fuzzy bear, doing jumping jacks, and other things like that. And this is a great tool for a child that needs something to calm them down, or if you have all the children in class that are hyper, it's also a great tool to kind of bring it all together. So it works for everyone. And then we're looking into future items, future things in the classroom, and as that becomes available, there'll be further video instruction and updates on how to use that. The third way we're clearing the ramp is by being informed. And if you're still watching this training video, you are more than 2/3 of the way there. If you would like to further equip yourself, there are a lot of great resources out there now. There's the Autism Self-Advocacy Network. They have an online PDF about autism that's free and free from misinformation. The National Down Syndrome Society has a website that has great resources as well. There's a book that I would love to share that's 10 Things Every Child with Autism Wishes You Know. That is great and helpful and more depth information to how you as a teacher can meet a child needs that works, again, for every child. And then as part of being informed, I want to talk specifically about behaviors and sensory needs because they can be more confusing and more abstract. So the first thing with behavior is the understanding that all behavior is communication. This is true across the board for everyone. and even more so for those with special needs who may not be able to communicate their needs verbally, or due to the nature of their disability may have a hard time understanding what is triggering their behavior. So hopefully the child profile, that tool that you have, can help navigate away from some of those triggers. But I want to stress, it is not your job, nor is it an expectation that you try to correct, change, or fix a child's behavior. That's not an expectation, and as long as it's not significantly distracting or unsafe, it's okay. If the child just wants to sit in foundations and play with fidget toys because they're uninterested or it's difficult to participate, that's okay. Now you may be able to look in their child profile or look at their behavior and find ways to engage them or motivate them more, but in the end, your job is just to love them where they are at. The behaviors that we want to watch for are those that lead to meltdowns or significant disruptions. They can be caused by overstimulation, dysregulation, demand avoidance, or something isn't going their way. We want to watch for these signs. If a child is starting to get agitated, anxious, sad, or hyper, those are good signs that the behaviors that they're experiencing could be leading this way. If you don't know what triggered this behavior, first step is just ask. They may be able to tell you. If they can't tell you why, or they're continuing to get more agitated, anxious, or sad, best step is try to redirect. You can redirect by changing the focus or goal of an activity, and be creative with this. Think about their interests. For example, a child is getting angry that the blocks they are stacking keep falling down. You remember from the child profile that they like weather. So you might say something like, hey, what do you think would happen if your tower if a tornado came through here? Can you show me? Wow, so cool. How about a hurricane? Now the goal is to actually make the blocks fall down. You can also redirect to just a different activity, thinking again of preferred activities, interests, or the proprioceptive activities. Again, same example with the blocks. Hey, let's pretend we're giant blocks. Watch me. Let's start really small, go down, down, then up, 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 up to our tippy toes, and then crash down to the ground. A good proprioceptive, calming activity. Do it with me. If a child, however, is engaging in unsafe behavior that you cannot redirect in a safe way, again, going back to that example, the child begins throwing the blocks at other kids, and you're unable to redirect. Hey, I know you're angry, but we can't throw blocks. Can you show me how angry you are with Mr. Bear, or would you like to squeeze Mr. Bear until you feel better? In that case, it's necessary then to contact the child's parents. Closely related to behavior are sensory needs. There are 3 types of sensory profiles for children with sensory processing challenges. The first, which is the most common one you think of, is sensory sensitivities. Loud noises, textures, bright lights, smells, good or bad, too much activity, can be overstimulating and sometimes even painful. Covering the ears or eyes, shutting down, and getting irritated are good indicators of sensory sensitivities. Having the class quiet down, you can check the script on how to do that, turning off the lights, redirecting the child to a quieter and sensory-friendly area of the classroom or outside the classroom for a break are all strategies that you could use to help this child. The other sensory profile is understimulated, and that means the child doesn't react appropriately to stimulation. It may look like boredom or disinterest. This child is more likely to do something to injure themselves or to put something inappropriate in their mouth that could potentially hurt themselves. Oftentimes, though, children that are understimulated also fall into the next category, which is the third profile, a sensory-seeking child. And this is a child that craves sensory input. In fact, this profile is often combined with both sensitive and understimulated sensory profiles. A child that is sensory-seeking craves sensory experiences that engage all their senses. Often they keep seeking these sensory input until they are dysregulated and overstimulated. So often they need a combination of big movement, proprioceptive type activities, along with calm down breathing activities like in, in, out. And we always want to keep things visual. So using your hand, in, out, something like that. They also might need to hide under Mr. Bear for the remainder of class, which is also, again, a proprioceptive activity. The last and perhaps best way to clear the ramp is being flexible and creative out of love. You may not always get through a lesson. Your planned activity might be derailed. That's okay. You may need to adjust on the fly due to a child's needs. You may not know what to do for a child except sit down on the floor next to them while they process their emotions. It's okay. Be flexible in your expectations for the class you teach. Ultimately, some days it's more about being Christ to the child than it is about teaching them about Him. I understand that this training video is both a lot of information and not nearly enough. But if you take away anything, ultimately, kids won't remember or even care if you finish your lesson. But they will remember how you love them and demonstrate to them how to love others. Our shovel isn't just the tools and the training, but Christ's love through us. Let's clear the ramp together. If you have any additional questions or you want more information, please feel free to reach out to me at lisa@riverbendonline.org.